and maybe how you're feeling today. Feeling good or freaked out or whatever. Just put that in the chat bar and we'll see how we are. Oh, so today we're gonna, if you've joined me on some of these calls before, we're gonna do a little bit of just me riffing and talking a little bit about some stuff that's going on in my life and what I'm observing right now in the museum field, and then we will have a little guided meditation, and then we will have some time for Q&A and just sort of a general chat to see how you're doing. And so the way to do the Q&A portion of this, the best way is to go ahead and use the Q&A button down at the bottom of your toolbar, and that'll help us triage those, and Heather will take a look at those as we're moving along, and she can throw those my way. And then any comments or thoughts and suggestions to the group, put them in the chat, and make sure that you've got all panels and panelists and attendees toggled there, so it's going to everybody. So, cool. How are we doing? So, the first thing, I guess, is isn't it fantastic that we are able to gather like this with technology? Now, I know that I am hearing more and more from people and experiencing it myself, this phenomenon of Zoom fatigue. It seems somehow that we are meeting more than ever, and the phenomenon of Zoom is in fact very fatiguing. There was an article last week, I forget which, I think it was in the Times, that New York Times, talking about there's a sort of psychological and physiological reason for the Zoom fatigue. But be that as it may, it is pretty amazing when you think we're able to, gather like we are now, and gather in other meetings and the like. Whereas when you think about it, if this whole thing would have happened a few years ago, what would we have done? We would have really been isolated in a lot of ways. So I think it's important to be grateful for little things like Zoom fatigue. As a matter of fact, it's something that's pretty cool. I will tell you, it is absolutely amazing though that it is palpable sometimes. At the end of the day, 5:30-ish, 6 or so, I'm just absolutely zonked out, and it's like, man, this is something. I'm wondering if anybody else has had that experience. The other thing that, speaking of sleep and being tired, has anybody actually been waking up at 3 in the morning kind of crazily as well? I mean, this is happening to me, and I understand it's happening to a lot of people as well, sort of the waking up in the middle of the night and having all sorts of heart palpitations about one thing or another. And I know for me that this has happened actually several times over the last couple of weeks. And I'm kind of asking myself, why is that happening? Typically, when I wake up, it is with this sort of really palpable sense of this is really happening. I can't believe it. This is really happening. And this meaning the lockdown, the shutdown, the somewhat dystopian nature of what we're doing today and for the last 7 weeks now. The idea that so many of our museum people are out of work and our museums are shut down. And, it's just like this sitting bolt upright. This is really happening. And I think that, what it points to some degree, is how much we fool ourselves on an ongoing basis, on a day-to-day basis. We really do sort of relate to adversity in ways that causes us to sort of suppress and to avoid and deny and do all sorts of, little tricks on a day-to-day basis. And I think that in my case anyway, one of the things that's been happening is that, I've filled myself with work. I think that the way that I've been coping with this has been, this is a new and different situation. I'm trying as hard as I possibly can to be as open and helpful, and our whole organization, I'm just so proud of our staff, sort of pouring our energies into trying to keep everybody connected through this kind of a thing, or the meetups or the virtual town halls and that type of thing. So day to day, I'm just sort of pouring myself into the work, and it's then at 3 a.m. where it pops up. This is really happening. This is really something, because in a way the work helps sort of suppress it, I guess, a little bit. We're doing something about it. We're controlling it. But when you're laying there and in the wee hours of the morning, you wake up, you can't avoid it at that point. This is actually happening. And it caused me to sort of think a little bit about, what a paradigm shift this is all about. What is a paradigm shift? It's like a sense of our reality is changing. And, you think back to say 8 weeks ago, 2 months ago, we were just living our lives. We were moving along, and, we kind of heard remotely that there's this coronavirus happening, and, it was all very abstract and what have you. And, but we were just living our lives out. And then all of a sudden, wham, life changes in a heartbeat. And so the first reaction is sort of like incredulity, and jumping into action. We've got to do something immediately, get things going, get our staff safe, keeping our families safe. What do we do? How do we reorient ourselves? And the first couple of weeks, though, it was really fully, I know in my case, and I'm sure in many folks' case as well, it was the sort of thing where this is all just very, very, very temporary. It was, literally, I left a whole bunch of stuff in the office, just like, okay, I'll be back shortly. So sort of like a long weekend kind of a thing. And, and then it became slowly a little bit more evident that this was going to last a little bit longer. So I went back to the office and picked up a few files and things that I thought I would need, that kind of thing. But it's not going to be all that long. And I think that, after the first month and a half now, it's starting to sink in that this is really going to be a long-term prospect. And, the way that I had been considering this reality over the course of the last few weeks, it's like I'm trying to impose my own sense of order on the chaos. You try to find meaning, you try to find a way to control it, to pin it down, to wrestle it to the ground, that type of thing. So at first it's just a very momentary thing. Then it's a little bit more, okay, I'm going to hunker down and settle in. And now, it really is starting to hit home that this is going to be much longer than we think in terms of the overall impact of what we have going on, despite the fact that many states are now opening up their economies. And our own, here in Massachusetts anyway, we have another 2 weeks officially to be in our lockdown mode. But we know that deep in our heart of hearts it's really going to be a longer term kind of thing. A couple of, I think it was a week and a half ago, something like that, I had encountered some data from, I think it was the Atlantic first, and I read it in the New York Times about how epidemiologists are talking about this, new normal basically is going to be very, very much in flux over the next, 2 years, perhaps even longer. The phrase that they used was the hammer and the dance. The epidemiologists are saying that, basically we need to have the hammer to bash down the coronavirus, which is what we're doing now, locking people down, very draconian measures, closing the economy down, that type of thing. And then the dance will be to reopen the economy and kind of see how we respond as a society. Are the cases going to go up? The death rates go back up? Are we going to spike and all that? And then we'll close down again, supposedly. And I know that in my conversations with executive directors, certainly over the last few weeks, we've kind of moved from, okay, we're just going to plan for a reopening to we're going to plan for reopening and then closing again and then possible reopening and the like, which I think is, really smart for us. We're going to need to be, I've compared it to being, sort of like the circus almost. We have to roll up our tents and then we'll roll them back out again and, bring the elephants out, that kind of thing for a while, and then have to roll up the tents again. And I think we all need to be kind of prepared for that. And this can be very depressing, I know. And it's, kind of touched me a little bit, wow, this is really something. Because, this is really challenging our sense of reality. And we end up suffering because of that, because our paradigms shift really as moment to moment, we're forced to change those paradigms, that sense of reality, and it's very uncomfortable. Whenever, things take us out of our comfort zone, it literally causes disease. It's a disease. We just try to avoid things. We try to paper it over, deny it, and so forth. And that, again, these are understandable reactions when you wake up at 3 a.m, sort of chilled to the bone. Like, what is it that, is going on here? Like, wow, I'm finally facing reality. So I think, it's important for us in many ways to, be capable of looking this adversity in the eye and figuring out what can we learn from it? What does it tell us about ourselves and about our presuppositions and so forth, our fears? What do we fear when we see this? And how do we see ourselves in this suffering? I know I've asked myself a bunch of times when I have these reactions, like, oh my gosh, here's what reality is, and I've been denying it. It's sort of like, what right have I ever had to actually feel as though I was certain about the reality in the beginning? Like, why is it that I believe things are in fact a certain way, as opposed to, being open to things shifting and the like? One of the things that I notice very definitely is that when I feel those emotions like that sort of, fear about things changing, about things not being the way that they seem and so forth, I notice a very definite contraction in my body. There's a sense of, just a contraction. Sometimes it's, like a squeezing, like, wow, this is really intense. You get your attention, but a lot of times it's not that dramatic. It's just simply a little contraction here and there. And I guess that's the part, whereas I've become much more mindful of, my emotions, my body, and so forth over the course of time. It's, you notice that a little bit more, like where are things contracting, chest, your throat, your breathing, perhaps a little bit, those kinds of things. And it's important to note that, because when you have a contraction of that sort, when you're not open and flowing and whatever, that sort of signals that you're having a problem with something. You're not accepting the reality the way it is. And that, of course, then causes suffering. If you let it go, it just creates more and more and more suffering. And, the more we let it go, then the deeper it gets. Anxiety and fear grows into full-out panic attacks and the like. So what can those things teach us? I think that's an important lesson. In many traditions, whether it's religious or cultural or literary traditions, adversity is very much a gateway to awakening and grace and so forth. And, the challenge of whatever adversity is out there is really an opportunity for us. And I think that's really smart. It's something to really ponder. It's a time for awareness and time for us to reflect on ourselves and our values and our actions and the like. Very definitely, we've noticed how we look at folks and how they respond to this particular crisis. It does signal, what you're made of, whether you're, somewhat tranquil about change, accepting of change, or whether you freak out, so forth. I found a great poem that I thought I'd read you. It's by a poet named Rumi, who is R-U-M-I, from, I think it was Persia, back in some years ago. Let's just call it that. And it's called The Guest House. I thought this was very appropriate to this theme, the guest house. Does everybody know what a guest house is? It's sort of like call it a B&B or an inn or something like that. Anyway, the guest house. This being human is a guest house. Every morning, a new arrival. A joy, a depression, a meanness. Some momentary awareness comes as an unexpected visitor. Welcome and entertain them all, even if they are a crowd of sorrows who violently sweep your house empty of its furniture. Still, treat each guest honorably. He may be clearing you out for some new delight. The dark thought, the shame, the malice, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in. Be grateful for whatever comes, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. Huh. It seems to me our guest houses are pretty full these days, aren't they? Think of that. It's such a great metaphor. The guests, these emotions that we have when we wake up at 3 in the morning. We can react to them in any one of a few different ways. How do we treat the guests? Do we try to lock the door on them? Don't want them in because they're so painful to confront, because they expose something about us that we're afraid of them somehow, these guests, the joys and the sorrows and what have you? Or do we let them in so that they can show us how to be really fully human? I love that phrase. He, that is the guest, he may be clearing you out for some new delight. You never know what's going to happen in adversity, that you think it's all terrible at a particular point, but you recognize that this is a what do they call it, a teachable moment. This is a teachable moment. I might learn something. The question is, how do we actually welcome those unwanted guests? What do we do about that when they show up? And I've mentioned this in other talks that we've had, if you've attended before, but I mentioned the technique that I learned, and it really works for me, and it's kind of out there in circulation in the mindfulness literature. It's called RAIN. It's an acronym, RAIN, and the R stands for recognition, and the A stands for acknowledgement, and the I stands for investigation, and the N in RAIN stands for nurturing. And so it's kind of a process that works very seamlessly when you begin to get into the habit of really trying to investigate those emotions that you get, those unwanted guests that are visiting you at 3 in the morning, so to speak. How do you get yourself to the point of learning from those experiences and from those emotions? And you employ this technique called RAIN. So I really do encourage you to take a look at it. Google it. This person named Tara Brach, Tarabrach, she has really taken this under her wing. And she's got a couple of mindfulness talks, Dharma talks, as they're known, about RAIN. She's written a few books. I think I referenced her the last time, but I really do recommend you take a look at it. But in a nutshell, the technique is really, the first R, the R is recognized. So, it's very important. That's just simple mindfulness. When you are all of a sudden awakened in the middle of the night or whenever by this emotion, whatever it is, anxiety, call it. The R is just simply to recognize it. So often we don't. We're, doing our own thing. We're lost in our minds. We're, not actually connected with those emotions. And so, it's important to sort of just simply recognize it. There's that little, gap that causes you to say, oh, I'm experiencing something. Acknowledging then is just, again, saying, yes, okay, I'm experiencing this particular thing. The I is investigation, and that's not so much investigating, like, why am I feeling this way? It's really investigating where this feeling is happening in your body. Typically, it's connecting with that feeling in your body. So the anxiety is causing that contraction of your muscles in your chest or your stomach or your throat or your heart's going. It's just simply investigating what's happening in me right now. And it might be investigating and try to identify what is in fact that feeling. Is it anxiety? It's fear, so forth. And you find that by doing that, by being able to identify it, feel it, where does it feel in you? That's part of the end and the nurturing, because ultimately you start feeling then a connection and a relationship with that particular feeling. And the nurturing is really trying to understand that that feeling is momentary and it goes away. it will eventually go away, and you nurture yourself. You don't tell yourself how terrible a person you are for having this feeling, or, oh my God, why did I wake up at 3 in the morning? And oh my God, I'm never going to go to sleep again. And I got to get to have all this work tomorrow, blah, blah, blah. You know, you nurture yourself by just simply allowing it to pass and noting it. So anyway, it's a great technique. Rain is very important. And it allows you to, you know, to find a bit of tranquility in the midst of the craziness, which is, I think, ultimately very important for us in our roles, in whatever role we play in our museums, to be able to be the person that is able to calm yourself and also calm others because of, you know, your own sense of tranquility in all of this. The Vietnamese Zen master Thich Nhat Hanh talks about his experience in Vietnam in the refugee boats, and he many years ago, and he recognized that if everybody on that totally crowded boat of refugees, everybody's panicked, everybody's, you know, flying off the handle, that boat is very likely to be swamped very quickly because everybody is in a panic. But even one person, he points out, that's able to be calm and centered on the boat is able to calm and center the rest of those folks, and is able to, you know, bring and restore a sense of peace and calm, and the journey can continue. And you can be that person, you know, in whatever role you play. And it's important now more than ever, even though we're not connected physically in the same room, we certainly still feel energy over Zoom and whatever else. And those emotions are, you know, really, really at the top of our heads right now with all that's going on. And, you know, even in Zoom calls, we detect that energy of our teams, or, you know, people that we're talking with. And if we can be calm and centered, then we're going to be actually benefiting ourselves in the field and whatever whatever jobs we're doing at that particular time. So let's have a little meditation, shall we? Let's try to find a little of that calmness and centering and so forth. So I invite you to get yourself comfortable, whether you're sitting in a chair or on the floor or lying down. Find a spot that you can maintain your comfort. Take a last sip of tea or whatever you got for a little bit. And you know, find that position. If you're sitting, try to become a little upright. I encourage you to close your eyes if you want to. If you want to leave them open just a little bit, that's fine too. Trick in meditation is trying to find the right balance between being tranquil and alert. Because if you get too tranquil, especially at 3 in the afternoon after a long day, you might fall asleep, which happens. It's all right as well. So sometimes keeping your eyes open slightly helps out. I know I've zoned out quite a bit with my eyes closed, and I open them for a few minutes, and it helps bring me back. Anyway, choose what you want to do. Eyes closed, eyes open, and think a little bit about your breath first. That's, of course, the traditional anchor for meditation. Just become aware of it. Take a few deep breaths and let them out, just kind of to get started and clean yourself out. Just breathe normally, observing your breath as it goes in. I do recognize that in this time of COVID-19, that some folks are in fact ill with the virus, and so that it might not be particularly easy for them to breathe. It might bring them a degree of difficulty. So if that's the case, breathe as much as you can. And if you do have difficulty breathing, I think that actually being aware of that difficulty is a good thing. Breathe into the difficulty. That helps. Some of us are very sympathetic to people that have the virus, whether you know that person or not, whether it's just society at large. And so we're naturally a little bit sensitive to breathing in that way. Still, it's important, I think, to breathe as we can and be aware and mindful of those people that we're concerned about, people that have died of the virus, the people that are ill, people that we know, people that we don't know. Sometimes it's helpful to alternate the way you breathe to bring your attention to your breath. So I'd like you to take 2 breaths, just normal breaths, not deep breaths, but 2 normal breaths, breathing into the chest. Breathe up into the chest. And again, one more. And now take a couple of breaths from the belly. Allow your breathing to go into your abdomen. Notice the difference in the sensations. Let's do a couple of breaths now where we alternate. One breath into the chest and then the next breath into the abdomen, into your belly, just on your own time. Nothing special. As you alternate, it brings your awareness to the fact that you're breathing. These are all techniques that you can practice on your own at different times, even when you're just taking a little bit of a mindfulness break in the middle of a phone call or a Zoom conversation or whatever. Spend a second to reconnect with your breathing and do that little alternating between your chest and your belly, and you find yourself focused a little bit more on your breathing, and it connects you. Another way of finding your awareness, finding that center, is to become aware of your body. So just spend a second to do kind of a quick scan of your body. I always like to start from low to high. Sometimes I picture it as being water that's kind of filling up the room. I'm seated here and the water, nice warm water, is starting to cover first my feet. You can kind of feel the weight of your feet touching the floor and imagine the water flowing over your toes and up your ankles, up your calves and your knees. Imagine that warm water covering your thighs, your hips, and on up to your abdomen. And the water keeps going up, and maybe now it's touching your hands if they're folded in your lap, and up your chest and your arms. Feel it touching your shoulders and your back, your neck, your chin. Pretend for the moment that the water is something you can breathe. You've got some gills, maybe, I don't know, the water goes up across your nose and your eyes, top of your head, and you're completely submerged. And you feel yourself, each little bit of your skin is touching the water somehow. You feel a little buoyant, perhaps, but you become very aware of each element of your body. Another element of awareness is our minds. When we're in meditation, sometimes we try very hard to seclude ourselves and to keep those thoughts out, but the thoughts, they still keep coming. But of course, that's what our minds do. They're thought machines. And so when the thoughts come, you simply acknowledge them as thoughts and kind of watch them come and go. They're here for a second and then they go, and you just reestablish your breathing and your sense of your body, and they'll pass away. I've heard it said that the mind secretes thoughts very similarly to the way we sweat or we just do, our bodies do what they do. And that's what the mind does. So there's no need to feel anxious or upset that we're doing that. That's what the mind does. So when we're in meditation, naturally we're starting to relax ourselves and those thoughts come. That's okay. Just be aware of what's going on up there. Another form of awareness is the awareness of us being together. The awareness that we are all here in this space, even though the space is not a physical one. We're in a space of unity and togetherness, all kind of taking a few minutes to take a little vacation from what it is that we've been doing, and we're all together, and we're very open to calling each other friends. We're all friends here in our field, and it is amazing when we think about how valuable and dear the folks are that we practice this great profession of being in the museum field. Everybody is so committed. We're all friends, and here we are together, a small group of us friends today. Very important to think that, especially as we're sheltered in our houses, and some of us very, very lonely. I get lonely. It's very nice to know that we're all together in spirit. And then there is awareness of the moment. Being aware of this particular moment in time. We're making history right now. And we don't even realize it. We're right here, right now, in this moment. Feeling our bodies, feeling our minds, aware of our breath. Very beautiful thought is to wish yourself some happiness in meeting this particular moment. The phrases that you can speak to yourself is, may I meet this moment fully, and may I meet it as a friend. May I meet this moment fully, and may I meet it as a friend. And I do that very often. I take one breath to say to myself, may I meet this moment fully. And then I let it sit. And then I take another breath and say, may I meet it as a friend. And I pause. So do that with me. May I meet this moment fully. May I meet it as a friend. May I meet this moment fully. May I meet it as a friend. So the last thing I'd like to ask you to do, as I typically do as I wrap up my own meditations every day, is to simply remind yourself that you are whole and you're complete and you're enough. Sometimes I put my hand right here and I emphasize that. You wish yourself well in this regard. You give yourself compassion and you think to yourself, I am whole, I'm complete, and I'm enough. So do that with me now. Put your hand up here if that feels comfortable. You can put both on if you're really feeling stressed out. Feel that warmth of your own hand, giving yourself compassion. Nobody else can do it unless you do it yourself. Got to be able to give yourself compassion, and you think to yourself, I'm whole and I'm complete and I'm enough. Such an important thing. Sometimes we do not believe that at all. I know this as a fact. There are moments when I feel as though I am so broken up and so discombobulated, and then I'm chasing after all sorts of things, approval, and distracted by things. But I always tell myself that I'm whole, I'm complete, and I'm enough. And you know what? With repetition, you come to actually understand that. You come to believe it. And it's a beautiful thing, because then you can pretty much find the strength and the courage to deal with anything. I'm whole, I'm complete, and I'm enough. So with that, I invite you to rejoin the land of the living here. Open your eyes if you've had them closed, and kind of wiggle yourself around a little bit. Sometimes it's a little bit disorienting to come out of meditation, to spend a second and kind of look around, see what you've missed. I always find when I come out of meditation, it's like things seem a little bit sharper sometimes. It's like, wow, look at that. Look at the dust over there on that windowsill, or look at that. You know, it's stopped raining, you know, that kind of thing. Okay, folks, what kind of questions do we have? What kind of problems do we have? What do you want to What do you want to find out? What's going on in your life? What can we talk about? Heather, you asleep?
No, I'm here. I've been doing my breathing. Didn't want to be on camera for that. No, I was wondering, have you been reading any of the stories about the vivid dreams people are having during being quarantined and stuff like that? I mean, they're kind of interesting, the whole psyche of the brain, like needing that extra activity and stuff like that. And so that's why people are having all of these vivid dreams. I think someone in the chat feature mentioned that as well.
Yeah, no, without a doubt. Sometimes I know they're extremely vivid, but I forget them. I don't know what they are. You know, I wake up and it's like, but yeah, no, it's a thing, definitely. I think our whole sleep patterns have been blurred. I think it has something to do with the fact that, you know, our circadian rhythms are definitely affected by virtue of our routines being messed up. You know, we're used to, most of us anyway, you know, getting out of the house and coming back in at certain times. And, you know, we don't have that. Here I am. I'm living in the library, basically, you know, and Heather, I see you in your place there, and that's our, you know, that's about it.
No, but it is interesting. I mean, just what the brain does, that it needs that creative outlet. And this is the way it's doing that outlet of, like, think about all the people that you interact normally and your brain's still craving that, but it's not something that you're aware. I mean, you're aware of it, but I think it's just, it escapes and it goes different places when you're sleeping and stuff like that. I found those articles really interesting. So I thought they were pretty cool to see and stuff like that and read.
Yeah, absolutely.
And everything. So Emily mentioned that Christian's sister is doing a sleep study.
Really?
Yeah.
I haven't heard from Kristen in a while. She's from Kentucky, I think, right, originally?
Thank you, Rena. We do appreciate you. We have a bunch of people from Texas joining us on some of our webinars and town halls and stuff like that. Texas and Florida are our big number ones on there. And
all right.
So that's always cool.
So you guys are what? Are you reopened now? Are you actually back in business or close to? I mean, your state is. I wonder how that affects your museums. I've thought about that quite a bit, of whether, you know, once the self-containment, what are we calling this? House arrest, I've been calling it. But, you know, once we're out of our houses, is that going to put pressure on museums to actually reopen prematurely? And do we, you know, are we ready? Are we ready to receive visitors? Or, you know, are any visitors going to come? So far, I've seen pictures of people on a beach. Well, that's different than actually hanging out in our museum spaces.
Well, I know on Twitter, a lot of them are saying, like, we're not going to be open. So I think, you know, as museums are trustworthy sites, you know, I think that's definitely a clue right there. If the museums aren't feeling comfortable about opening, or they're not ready to open, I think that goes to the fact that museums are a trustworthy institution. People believe in us, stuff like that. So I think the museums are making that step of, like, no, we're not ready to do this yet. And I think, you know, that's a good, I don't know. I think that's a good thing and a positive for the museums to be able to stand up and say, no, you know, not yet.
I never thought of it that way, but, you know, it might be that we're actually serving a purpose to, you know, mind our manners and watching science do its thing and be, you know, mindful of that, as opposed to, you know, willy-nilly opening up and putting people in danger, perhaps. So, you know, we are perhaps a bellwether for different things. Meditation channel. All I can do to do this every couple of weeks. I don't know, man. Maybe. I don't know. Who knows? It's fun. I enjoy it. I mean, I'd be doing this anyway. Maybe not at 3, but, you know, do it first thing in the morning or something. I don't know.
Yeah, we could do that. Or, you know, if you ever want to watch any of the other ones that Dan has done, we do have them recorded on the NEMA YouTube channel. So if you want to feel some deep breathing with Dan in the morning, they're there. Because I know also Mid-Atlantic and the Midwest museums are going to be doing a mindfulness next week too.
Oh,
so if you want to check them out,
They're calling it Spring into Well-Being. And
Yeah,
we're all,
yeah,
yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool. They're doing what do they call it? A Star Wars meditation,
yeah, the Yoda one.
which sounds kind of funny. That's, I don't know if that's my jam or not. I could be funny, but I'm not sure. You know.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
but
mean,
it's really cool. They're doing I don't know all of what they're doing, but yeah, it's self-care,
yep.
self-care programming, which is really important.
Yeah, definitely in these times. I mean, it's like, I think that's why you do your mindfulness. Meg's doing her creative stuff. So we do have one tomorrow. Definitely take a break from your normal routine. And Meg is doing the one tomorrow. Meg Winnicate's our coworker. Is that what you're asking, Vivian Lee? It's a creative break. So she will make you dance and write poetry and draw. So it's stuff that gets you out of your normal routine, like Dan does with the breathing and stuff. So I think, Midwest Association and the Mid-Atlantic
Yeah,
Association.
Midwest and Mid-Atlantic are teaming up.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't know. You know what? I didn't see. I talked with them both yesterday, but I didn't get a sense of like where it lives. Is it on the Midwest's website?
I've
Both.
only probably both. I've only seen it through Twitter, so.
Yeah. All right. Well, something else for you to do.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Definitely.
Yeah. We're all just. Are we? No questions? Should I ask a question of everybody?
I think we're all coming down from that relaxation. So.
Yeah. Could be. Well, I'll ask the question though. I'm very curious about what people do. How many of you all actually have a meditation practice? How many, are kind of dabbling in it? And what else do you do? Do you do yoga? Do you do dance? Do you do, I don't know, drawing, painting? What do you do to kind of break your stress? Anybody dare to actually use the Calm app before going to sleep? Church? Yeah.
I walk. That's my meditation, is walking. So.
Cuddle dogs.
And you heard Dan's dog Finny in the background there.
Yeah, the cur, the mutt.
He gets you out of the house.
Cynthia, I see Cynthia on. You mentioned to me the other day you have an app called COVID Coach, and I haven't looked at it yet, but I was curious about that. You want to throw that either into the chat or tell us where that, it's COVID Coach, and it's got some meditations and sort of, what else does it have on it? I still see you there. I'm calling you out, Cynthia Walker. Art making. I need to do more art making.
You used to sketch a lot, so maybe you should go back to
I should. Yeah. That's one of my things is people don't know. I used to be a cartoonist. Like a fun fact. I used to do a lot of stuff, It's like, it's interesting. One of my kids, as some of you know, is in the healthcare profession, and in his time off, we all used to do. That is, we all. I have two boys and a girl. When they were younger, we used to do modeling a lot. Actually, I've got. Can you see it down there? I've got a little race car that I did about. We used to do that, but they still. So now they all live in apartments. He's in New York City, a little apartment, but he's been doing. He's been getting these paper, like architectural models. He did a little Japanese. Like a convenience store, like for some reason, but the tiny little parts that you cut out of paper and you glue them together, and they've got, it's like basically you need glue and little pieces of paper. And I thought that's pretty cool. And so he finished that, and he got another one of the Roby house, Frank Lloyd Wright's house in Chicago. And so now he's working on this paper model of the Roby house, which is kind of an interesting thing. I thought, that's kind of cool. People
kind of like
crafting and that kind of thing.
Yeah, no, it's the jigsaw puzzles. Vivian Lee mentioned jigsaws. That's kind of like the crafting thing on that one, because I also do jigsaws, but I can't start one, or I have to completely finish it, and that's never a good thing at 2:00 in the morning.
You have to finish one fell swoop?
Well,
Held to do that?
I have maybe an addiction issue when the puzzle comes out, so
Oh,
I just can't let it sit there. I have to complete it. It's
yeah.
not always a good thing for me. It is relaxing, though. I will admit it's super relaxing. I just get a little too involved in on it. So,
Yeah, you see, jigsaw puzzles, they tend to do the opposite for me. I get a little bit freaked out and frustrated, and it's like, oh my God. So, yeah, I don't know,
everything in its place.
maybe. I don't know. Oh yeah, so Cynthia says COVID coach, Veterans Affairs. Okay, that's good to know. Yeah, it's cool. Yeah, plus it's free and there are no ads and extraneous things. Yeah. Okay. So we out of steam. We done? I'm done if you want. We can do some more meditating. I don't know. Get back to our work.
I have to gear up for another Zoom call in a few minutes.
I am?
No, me. I am.
Oh,
I
you
am.
are. Okay, good. Well, don't let Zoom fatigue get you. Okay, everybody. Well, we'll call it quits there. I hope you have a terrific day. We'll do this again at some point. I'm not promising any Zoom channels or whatever, YouTube channels, but we'll do it again. So keep meditating. Let me know if ever, I always make this offer, and I'm not kidding. If you guys ever have an emergency, though, and you need to talk to somebody, it's important to talk to somebody. But if you want to talk to me in particular, just go ahead and email me. Look at the NEMA website, dan.yaeger@nemanet.org, and I'm happy to help out any way I can. It's important that you know you're connected, though. Okay.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Stay safe and wash your hands.
Yeah, right. Bye.
Bye.